welcome. Welcome to the stream. We've got a very exciting day today, all right? Some crazy stuff has gone down in not the stock market, but on Twitter. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's some incredible stuff going on in the world, and it's all going to be very interesting. So welcome to this week of the market. Hopefully it's going to be a good week. Hopefully we're going to see some real progress going on in Ukraine and Russia and an end to the conflict. We'll see if that's actually going to be the case. But all in all, some stocks are pumping, some stocks are moving down. We're going to look at them, what's moving them. And before we do, good morning, Francis, Teflon Don, Greg, Maria, CG, Bill. And good morning, guys. Welcome to the stream. Hopefully everyone, even the people watching the playback, not even the live stream people, had a great weekend. And I know I did. I definitely just took some time off. I was on a bit of a vacation. I went to a vineyard to celebrate a birthday with a family member, and it was a good time. So now I'm ready for another week of hard work in the markets and in real life. So we're back to reality, and hopefully we're going to see some good stuff. And it's quite possible that we will. Based on this first story that we're about to pull up, Russia and Ukraine are expected to resume peace talks via video link on Monday morning. So hopefully something can come from these peace talks. I mean, we've been unsuccessful the first couple of peace talks that they've had. But maybe this time will be different. Maybe they'll get closer to some kind of resolution. The goal that they're trying to reach in this, Ukraine's objective, is to secure a ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine. Obviously, right? They want that to happen. And we'll see if that can be the case. Ukraine has certainly been willing to give some on some of Russia's demands, right? They're willing to accept a neutral stance and to not be joining NATO. So maybe that will be enough for Putin. We'll see. Probably not. But we'll see what they can come to. Conclusion-wise, right? If they can come to some kind of agreement, that would certainly put the stock market at ease. But the markets overall, at least some stocks, are looking at this news somewhat favorably. Some are looking at it somewhat unfavorably, okay? We're going to look at some stocks that are not doing too well today, including CEI, as well as some that are doing incredibly well. MULN, the market overall is relatively flat. We had a poor end to the day yesterday. We just kind of trended down despite the news that Putin said talks were going well and that there had been some positive developments. The market initially pumped on that and then continued to sell off the rest of the day. But we are actually up a little bit during the pre-market and after hours. So all things considered, it could be a lot worse, right? There could be much, much worse stuff going on. And if you're in Russia, then you might not even be aware of a lot of the bad stuff going on, because there has been a very harsh campaign run by Russia to silence a lot of the people talking online about some of the issues that have been happening lately. The whole invasion, the war, Russia's been trying to silence with a bunch of laws regarding the internet, and that's actually led to VPN use in Russia surging as citizens try to bypass the government's tightening internet control. Now, this is interesting because you actually have statistics on this stuff from the App Store and the Google Play Store on how many more people are downloading these VPNs to bypass the government's control over the internet. So you can see the top 10 VPN apps in Apple's App Store and the Google Play Store in Russia saw nearly 6 million downloads between February 24th and March 8th. So February 24th is when the invasion began, and March 8th is when they were measuring this until that was up 1,500% versus the previous 13-day period. So as soon as this whole invasion began, Russia started enacting some laws, and a lot of them are regarding what you can and can't say about what Russia's doing, right? You can't call it an invasion, a war, or anything like that. And if you have misinformation, or if you spread what they call misinformation about this whole thing, you can face up to 15 years in prison. So people are downloading VPNs, trying to get around this censorship, right? There are other laws that have been enacted, right? Russia has been trying to censor their internet for years. And President Vladimir Putin has looked to tighten his grip on the internet. Even as recently as 2019, Russia enacted the Sovereign Internet Law, giving authorities wide-ranging powers to try to disconnect its internet from the rest of the world. And at the time, they did it under the guise that the law was designed to enhance its protection against cyber attacks. So something to watch out for in the US. If they ever start telling us we need to disconnect our internet for fear of cyber attacks, then you know what they're really up to. And and as various companies have begun restricting access to their products in Russia, right? We've looked at some like Meta, Twitter, TikTok, and Netflix even. They've started restricting access to their products in Russia due to this whole Ukraine invasion. VPN apps have experienced a surge in adoption as Russian users attempt to bypass these restrictions. And it's not just these companies deciding to withdraw from Russia. A lot of it is Russia deciding to ban the companies. I believe they decided to ban Meta, so Facebook. It was blocked on March 4th, and access to Twitter is restricted. So Russia does not want people talking freely, right? They don't want people speaking freely. Now, I will say, in the U.S., a lot of people are concerned about free speech and whatnot, and shadow banning and censorship. A great place to potentially check out, if you guys are watching this, you might be watching on YouTube. A great place is potentially Rumble. Rumble is a pretty good video streaming platform. We certainly post Rumble. In fact, let's see. You can see we post on the finance page right here. You can check out the channel on Rumble. Feel free to subscribe. We're streaming to Rumble even right now. You might be watching it on Rumble. And if you wish, you can always click this red join button, join the locals group as well, where we post pretty much every day the market's open. We try to do that. So feel free to join either the locals page or the Rumble if you guys wish. That's a good free speech location if you guys are worried about that kind of stuff. And it's not just speech that's being restricted. In fact, a lot of other countries are actually taking actions against Russia, trying to restrict them, trying to bring an end to this conflict. And an end to the conflict would, that would be ideal. We would like to see this thing ending sooner rather than later. The stock market has been getting dragged through the gutter, right? Dragged through the dirt during this whole situation with Ukraine and Russia. People are worried about oil prices being on the rise. They're worried about the economic fallout that could happen if Russia does decide to take some other actions. Potentially, they might decide to ban the sale of oil to Europe, which uses quite a bit of Russian oil. It would be pretty devastating if they did that. But the stock market has not been in a good way ever since this has been happening. Obviously, when people are afraid, whenever there's geopolitical tension, there's going to be a little bit of pain in the stock market for the most part. Sometimes that can be a great buying opportunity. Typically, it has been. Historically, in the past, we looked at some studies that showed if you ended up buying, I forget the exact percentages, but you were pretty much, most of the time you were up in a big way 3 months after the conflict and even 1 month after the conflict. Now, obviously, this conflict is lasting for a bit longer than what people were hoping for, and we'll see how much longer this whole thing goes on in Russia and Ukraine. Hopefully, it'll come to a speedy end. Once again, they are talking. They're going to resume talking this Monday via video link. It looks like meeting in person was deemed either too much of a hassle or too risky, too dangerous by both sides. Nobody wanted to be apprehended, and I guess they just decided to talk via video link. I suppose that works just as well. It's probably not ideal, but it gets the job done, essentially. So we'll see what kind of positive developments we can get out of that. Hopefully something good. It's not been good for CEI stock, which we'll get to in a little bit. First, we're going to talk about some additional pressures that have been getting placed on Russia to potentially try to get them to have a little bit more of an incentive to end this conflict sooner rather than later, right? The more pressure that other countries put on Russia, the more likely it is that we're going to end this thing in a timely manner, and that Putin will hear from his buddies, the Russian oligarchs, that it's time to end the invasion. So look at this. Golden passports for the rich face new restrictions in a global crackdown on Russian oligarchs. So I had never actually heard of these golden passports before, but we're going to explain. Essentially, these golden passports are citizenships for sale, essentially, right? Citizenship by investment. So you're basically selling citizenship to different countries, to the world's wealthy. So if you invest enough money in certain countries, then they're willing to give you these passports and these visas that give you access to the country, unfettered access, essentially. So the 3 EU countries offering golden passports, Bulgaria, Cyprus, and Malta, are all phasing out or considering ending their programs. And the 12 EU countries offering golden visas, including Greece, Spain, and Hungary, are now also considering new limits or phasing them out as well. Now, these are fairly prevalent, right? Not the most prevalent, but if you're a wealthy individual, you probably know about them. You might even have one yourself. But the UK government has issued over 2,500 visas to Russian citizens under this program since it launched in 2008. So it's not the most widely used program. You have to invest in the UK at least $2.7 million in the country to get one of these visas. So you've got to have quite a bit of money if you want one of these. But it's certainly going to be a bother to these Russian oligarchs, right? They would much rather have been able to keep their citizenship, to be able to keep their visas to these European countries and maybe get out of Russia if they so chose. But now it looks like these are being restricted, they're being taken down, and they're not processing any additional applications in a bunch of Caribbean countries. So it's not just Europe, right? It's countries all around the world that do this. And Caribbean countries are saying that they've stopped processing applications from Russians and won't take any new application from Russian naturals or nationals. So we're looking at a situation where nobody is being too friendly to these Russian oligarchs. Everybody wants them to put a bunch of pressure on Putin. And that seems like a good situation, right? It's looking like we might end up seeing Putin get not physically attacked, but verbally attacked, potentially maybe in private. Maybe these Russian oligarchs will have to have a talking with him and hopefully end this whole thing, because nobody is happy to see it. Everybody wants this to come to a speedy conclusion. And for some reason, all of my tabs just closed. But here we go. I'll try to get them back. All right. Now, a bunch of those countries, and we'll pull back up the screen right here. So a bunch of obviously more Western countries, right? Caribbean countries, European countries are all trying to get Russia to end this whole conflict. Now, there's one country in particular that is seen as a big threat to the efforts that the world is trying to put on Russia, right? To the huge sanctions that we're trying to place on them, all the pressures that we're placing on them. There's one country that is seen as being a big threat and as a potential relief for them. Now, that is, of course, China, right? China is seen by the U.S. as pursuing its own interests as it decides whether to help Russia or not, right? China and Russia have a somewhat friendly relationship as of late, and China will likely consider its own interests when deciding whether it should help Russia cope with the impact of Western sanctions, all right? At least that's according to the former deputy sanction coordinator for the U.S. State Department. So the sanctions coordinator, a former sanctions coordinator, is saying that it might not be as likely as some people are thinking that Russia will end up helping China in a big way. He says they might, but it's not a guarantee, and this is why. So obviously, China is very important to the world economy. They produce a whole bunch of stuff. They're one of the largest economies in the world, and they would be able to offer a massive amount of support for Russia and for Moscow, as there are a bunch of sanctions being placed on them, if they chose to. However, he says that the Chinese are always going to consider their national interests, and they still have a substantial interest in being able to do business in Europe and do business in the United States. So he continues to say the degree to which China is seen as undermining the sanction campaign that the United States or Europe are pursuing may potentially adversely affect that. So he's basically saying, if China is seen as helping Russia too much and doing too much additional trade with them and helping them out, then it might be the case that the United States and Europe decide to start sanctioning China as well. And he thinks that the Chinese are going to hold that pretty seriously. So maybe China won't be helping Russia out as much as Russia would like. That's a potential situation that we're looking at. So far, they've refused to call Russia's invasion an invasion. They haven't called it an invasion. They have called for negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, but they haven't actually called it an invasion. And they said that they want to maintain normal trade relations with everybody throughout this whole conflict. So that means Russia, Ukraine, the US, Europe. They don't want to be affected by this at all. It's an interesting stance to take. It certainly seems to benefit them, right? They just want to be viewed as remaining neutral. And whether or not the United States and the West and Europe will find that acceptable is another matter, right? And my guess is that we're not going to start sanctioning China, right? That seems like an unlikely situation. I don't think that we want to stop doing trade with China. I'm pretty sure we get most of our stuff there, so I don't think anyone wants that to end anytime soon. And of course, China doesn't want it to end. I mean, they're raking in a whole lot of money from this. It's a bunch of economic activity. I'm sure they love the trade as well, but I don't think anyone in the United States especially wants that to come to an end. So Purdy Plays says, actually, I just took a peek at the chat. Purdy Plays says, first time catching you live. Well, that's awesome, man. I know not everyone can get in on the live streams. We try to do them. I mean, this is I know it's a time that a lot of people might be at work, right? 9 o'clock might be when some people are starting work and whatnot. But every now and then, sometimes people can catch us live. So there's not really too much of a better time, unfortunately. Too much earlier, and not much has been reported on. Not much is going on in the markets, and not many people are awake. And too much later, I mean, you'd have to go way after, probably way after 4 or 5 after the market's closed. And a lot of people are probably looking to wind down, and I think that's the best. If people have a hard day at work, the last thing you want to do is think about the stock market. You want to take some time to just chill, relax, not do too much, take it easy, reset, and get ready for the next day. So That's why I like the playbacks though. It's good that there's that this is recording itself, and people can watch it whenever they wish. So we will get back into what we were discussing. So we're hoping that sometime soon we're going to see a conclusion to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But there are some big investors out there who are potentially betting that that won't happen sometime too soon, or potentially they're betting that some things are going to get worse sanction-wise. Maybe that Russia's going to pull oil out from Europe, that they're going to start sending it somewhere else, that they're just going to cut Europe off. Or maybe just that there are going to be some other oil-related pressures that are going to increase the cost of oil. And that big investor is actually Warren Buffett, okay? Because Warren Buffett is buying oil stocks. He's buying Occidental Petroleum, adding shares worth $1.5 billion, and he was doing this as recently as last week, okay? He spent about $4.5 billion the week before last, buying 91 million shares, and last week he spent $1.5 billion, adding another 27 million shares. An SEC filing on Friday revealed the purchases were made on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at prices between $51 and $58. So we're looking at a situation where Warren Buffett is bullish on oil stocks, at least on stock Occidental Petroleum. OXY is the ticker symbol, moving it up to the 9th largest holding on Berkshire Hathaway's list of their reported holdings. So crazy to see, and they have certainly done very well over the past year. They're up nearly 90% over the past 12 months. And more recently, they've skyrocketed, right? So looks like Warren Buffett's buying these stocks, even at these high prices, right? He could have been buying them, months and months and months ago, but he's buying them here as well. So we're looking at a situation where Warren is betting big on oil. And it might not be the worst bet. Now, obviously, he's not betting on CEI, right? CEI is a very small market cap stock, and Occidental Petroleum, the stock that Warren Buffett is buying, it's a massive oil stock, $54 billion oil stock. So he's not necessarily betting on pump plays or anything like that, but he is betting on oil and the price of oil continuing at least to maintain itself, right? It would be very bad for oil stocks. CEI, OXY would be bad for them if we saw the price of oil fall dramatically. Now, today, the price of oil is actually down. It's down about 4%. It's another reason why we're seeing CEI stock, unfortunately, moving down today. In the pre-market and the after hours, we're seeing not great stuff. So from the close on Friday, CEI, one of the plays that we've been talking about on the channel, has moved down. Now, it's moved down about 12% over the weekend. So not the best stuff. And it's understandable, right? Oil is down in a decent way. Russia and Ukraine are going to start talking. So it's completely understandable that this pump play, based on the price of oil, is down, and certainly down off of its highs compared to where oil is. Oil is also down off of its highs. It's fallen quite a bit. So completely understandable, right? Now, will we see a rebound? It seems like at least Warren Buffett is betting that we'll maintain these prices or move higher. At least that's what he's betting on as of Friday, buying up other oil stocks. So potentially we will. I mean, I think that it's quite possible we might, right? There's no such thing as a guarantee, a 100% guarantee in the stock market or in anything in life, but I think that there is a potential likelihood where we could see oil prices moving back up in a big way. So I am still holding CEI stock, right? I'm still betting that we might see a little bit of a move up. And even if we don't, the thing about CEI is it's essentially turned into a more alternative investment, right? It tends to move the opposite of the market in this current economic and political environment, right? Where Russia's invading Ukraine, it tends to be the case that when news is bad for the stock market, it's good for oil prices and thus good for CEI price. So it tends to move up when bad news comes out and down when good news comes out. And if it's just a small part of your portfolio, it's essentially just a hedge against bad things that might happen. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it. I think that there's a high probability that we could see some more bad news coming out regarding Russia and Ukraine. Putin has not been very good thus far. I think that he's probably, he might do some more bad stuff, and we might not see a speedy end to the conflict. I know we're all hoping for it, but you never know, right? He's starting to talk about, I don't know if we've talked about chemical weapons yet, but there was something about chemical weapons that we wanted to discuss. Maybe I missed that story. Did it disappear? No, here it is. Here it is. So we missed the chemical weapons story, but it's possible that Putin's going to start making a move with chemical weapons. Now, I could have sworn I had this story pulled up somewhere, wherever it went. I must have accidentally gotten rid of it, but regardless, we'll talk a little bit about it. Here we go. We bumped right over it. If Putin uses chemical weapons in Ukraine, it's a game changer for NATO. Now, we're not going to talk too much about this, but in the last week, Russia has accused Ukraine of operating chemical and biological weapon laboratories backed by the United States. And, it just really depends on which media source you ask, right? If it's an Eastern source, a Russian source, or a Western source or US source, right? But many officials are seeing this as Russia inventing and building a false narrative and pretext for using its own chemical weapons against Ukraine. And apparently that would be a game changer for NATO. So maybe NATO would get involved if Russia decided to go ahead and do that. If they decided to start using chemical weapons, maybe NATO would decide to get involved. But it really just shows you can't trust any media source because every media source is, back and forth. They all say their own thing. And it just depends on who you ask what you're going to hear. And people in Russia and Ukraine, some of them are probably as firmly in belief of what the Russian media is saying as the United States citizens are in what the U.S. media is saying. So, there are people on both sides just completely believing whatever side says what they like to hear. And, it's a scary situation. My advice is don't trust anybody. Trust yourself. Don't even trust me, right? You can't even trust me. You never know when someone's going to come with a big payday for me. So you can't even trust me. You just got to trust yourself, guys, and make your own decisions. Do as much research as you can. But at the end of the day, it's really tough. I mean, unless you're on the ground looking at things in person, it's really tough to say if what someone's typed online is true or what they're saying is true. It's nearly impossible. And everyone out there has a bunch of incentives to lie, right? There are always incentives to lie. People are always willing to pay you to lie. So you never want to put too much trust in anything. You always want to be a little bit skeptical, and not to the point where you're a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but you just want to be skeptical. So I always try to take what people say with a grain of salt, but you guys have to make your own decisions about how much and to what extent to do that. But that's what we're hearing about chemical weapons in Ukraine, right? Russia's saying that Ukraine and the United States are doing it, and the U.S. is saying that probably means Russia's going to do it soon, so it's just a tough situation. So we might end up seeing the conflict get a little bit worse if someone decides to use chemical weapons or whatnot. But obviously, the point of this, Warren Buffett betting big on oil. He's adding to his position. This oil company just became his ninth largest holding, or the ninth largest holding of Berkshire Hathaway's. So we're looking at a situation where at least Warren Buffett's betting that oil is potentially going to rise. All right, that's what we're seeing here. And we'll see what happens to the price of oil. Obviously, bullish movements in oil are going to be beneficial for CEI stocks. So, as a holder of that, I wouldn't mind CEI pumping up a little bit and then and selling it at a bit of a peak. It's probably not a long-term hold for me, but we'll see what goes on. We'll also talk about MULN, Mullen Automotive, and the pump that they are currently experiencing. All right, they're up actually quite significantly during the after hours and pre-market, and even towards the end of Friday before the weekend, they were moving up. But just from the after hours and pre-market, they're up about 38%. And from the dollar that they were sitting at right before this move up began, we're looking at them being up about 77%. So big gains on MULN. Now we're going to talk about what has caused these big gains on Mullen. All right, there are a couple of things that we've got to talk about. So first, Mullen featured on CarBuzz. It's the 5EV crossover that they've been working on, right? And essentially, CarBuzz just interviewed Mullen's CEO, David Mitchery. And they featured them. They highlighted the company's high-performance EV crossover, the Mullen 5. So they're getting some hype off of that, right? They're getting some hype off of that. We're going to look at an interesting statistic on Google Trends, actually, between two of the stocks that we've been watching on this channel, all right? You can see a red line and a blue line right here on Google Trends. The blue line is CEI stock. The red line is MULN. And you can see that the past week, CEI has been a much more popular stock search-wise than MULN. However, due to the fact that CEI is actually on the decline and MULN is rising, you can see that the tides changed over the weekend, right? MULN is actually getting a whole bunch more views and searches than CEI. So it has become the favorite as of late. Even though it's a smaller market cap, it's become the favorite. MULN has overtaken CEI. So we're looking at a situation where purely pump play-wise, right, not based off of, Ukraine-Russia news and oil news, MULN has become a bit more popular than CEI. So interesting to see. It makes sense. Typically, as stocks decline, right, as CEI has been declining, fewer and fewer people have been searching for it. And now that MULN is on the rise, people are looking into it. They want to know what's going on. They want to know if they should buy it. And we're looking at a situation where it looks like, at the very least, quite a few people are buying it. We're near the highs of this pump. In fact, if you look at the past 30 days, you can see we wouldn't have to get that much higher. Only about, this is probably what, like 10% higher, maybe 15% higher from where we're at to get to the highs of this pump. Yeah, about 15, 16, 17% maybe to get to new highs on MULN over the past 30 days. So impressive stuff, or over the past 15 days, I guess. But MULN, not that far off from continuing to make new highs. So exciting stuff for anyone who's holding it. It is also notably on StockTwits, the number 2 top trending stock right there, or most active stock, actually, below the S&P 500, far above CEI. CEI is number 7. It's still up there. It is down, unfortunately, so it's potentially up there for not as good reasons, right? People are talking about why is CEI crashing, potentially. But there is a chance, right? There is a chance at any time, whenever we get a catalyst coming out about oil and Russia and Ukraine, CEI could be back on the move up. And MULN could certainly continue this rally for a bit. We'll have to see where it might top out. Maybe $2. That is potentially going to be a resistance level. And I do always advocate, though it's never financial advice, I always advocate, if you're in the green in a big way, sometimes it makes sense to start taking little profits here and there, slowly sell out of these positions. But if you think MULN is going to skyrocket, if you have reason to believe that it's going to skyrocket, go even higher, if you think there's another catalyst that's going to come out that's going to move it up even more, or if you just think that today is going to be a really bullish day, then, obviously you can make your own decisions and whatnot. I just tend to like, when I'm in the green, selling out a little bit here, a little bit there, just in case, because we have seen time and time again, these stocks can move down and move down fast. Look at MULN, what it did the other day when it was hitting $2 in the pre-market, and before the day was half over, it was at 89 cents. So same kind of thing with CEI, right? You see it moving down pretty dramatically in a single day from $1.98 as the market opened down to $1 just an hour or two later, just about 3 hours later. So you can see these stocks move down pretty quick, but it's not a guarantee that we're at the top or anything. It's just, that's why I like to take a little bit of profits here, a little bit there, and then you can always be selling some near the top if you're just constantly selling, because you never know exactly when the top is going to hit. It's almost impossible to find the exact top. Sometimes it does actually find itself at these support and resistance levels, right? Like at $2 for CEI. You couldn't say exactly that it's going to be $2 for sure. We'll pull out the 30-day chart for this. You can't say for sure it's going to be $2, but it's more likely to be $2 than it is to be $1.75, right? That's a stronger psychological resistance level, right around $2. And then finding support at $1 makes a lot more sense than at $1.10 or $1.20. So, sometimes you can maybe gauge where you might be likely to find the top, but it's impossible to say. CEI could have gone to $3, and then the top might have been there. So it's tough to say, but that's just my non-financial advice. The thing that I like to do. I like to sell a little bit, somewhat frequently, right? Just every couple of hours. If it's just continuing to soar up and up, that's what I like to do. But everyone has a different strategy. Everyone likes to do different stuff, and you don't have to do it my way. I'm just letting you guys know what I've found is beneficial for my psychology, right? Because I do tend to get a little bit nervous if I'm holding all of a play and it's getting super high and I start to see it move down. Maybe it moves down 10%. I wonder, oh, shoot, should I be selling now? Is it about to crash? But if I've been selling along the way, it can actually help me not worry as much about the play moving down temporarily, because it's typically not a straight line up. You saw this thing peak out at $1.87 and then move down to $1.68, and now it's back up on the rise. It's back in the 180s. But back when you saw this thing moving down to $1.60, you might have been wondering, ooh, is it going to crash? Should I be selling it? And if you hadn't taken any profits, you might have been inclined to do that. But if you were just selling a little bit along the way, maybe you sold some at 170, 180, then maybe you'd be more inclined to hold steady because you've already taken some profits. Now we're getting the market open, it's looking like it's actually been a good market open so far for CEI stock and the overall market. Big green bars on both of those. DWAC also looking good, right? We're sitting right around the $70 support level for DWAC. And MULN is the only one that's a little bit red. Obviously, people are looking at that, maybe wanting to take some profits, maybe just selling a little bit there. It's still ranking pretty highly on stock twits and whatnot. So we'll see how much more attention we can get on that one. We'll see what we can get going on for MULN. But one thing that I did want to bring up, a very interesting tweet that I wanted to bring up right here. And we'll overlay it over the market for just a second. We'll let the market do what it does for just a second. It comes from Elon Musk. And he says, I hereby challenge, and then some, I believe it's Russian characters, to single combat. Stakes are, and some more Russian characters. Now, we're going to like this tweet. And I actually decided to search on Google Translate what these characters meant. So essentially, Elon Musk says, I hereby challenge blank to single combat. Stakes are blank. And what those two words are, or three words are Vladimir Putin and Ukraine. So Elon Musk, if you translate this stuff, he's actually saying, I hereby challenge Vladimir Putin to single combat. Stakes are Ukraine. So we'll see if Putin takes him up on that. You know, it would be interesting to see what Elon Musk versus Putin could do. Elon Musk is certainly a lot younger. Now, look at this. MULN. We'll stop talking about Elon for a second. MULN is pumping up. It's up to $1.98. A big boost to the price. Look at that big green bar right there. Up in just a couple of minutes, up 10% over the course of 2 minutes. Pumping up big time. So we'll see what we can do at $2. We're getting to $1.98, and that is holding somewhat firm. That's where CEI ended up topping out. CEI, though, is also moving up. We're seeing some green on that as well. This will be interesting to see if we can get through two. We're almost, we're seeing some red now, along with the overall market. In fact, the market looks like it's taking a little bit of a turn, unfortunately. We will pull up some cryptos in just a second. It looks like DWAC is going to be using that $70 support level. Hopefully it will hold there. CEI is benefiting. Potentially some people are looking at it like it's gotten a little bit too cheap over the after hours. Oil's not down that much, right? It's down about 4%. It's not like oil has crashed or anything. It's still quite expensive. But CEI, certainly seeing quite a bit of green. If we keep up at this pace, then we could potentially be getting green on the day. Right now, we're still down about 7% from close, but this is quite a bit of green for CEI, all things considered. You know, people might be weighing Warren Buffett's decision to end up buying up oil stocks, right? Some people might be betting maybe we'll see oil go higher. Warren Buffett seems to think so. And MULN, it looks like $2 might have done it. At least $1.98. You don't always hit the point exactly, but $1.98, pretty darn close to $2. I'm going to count that as a $2 resistance right there. It looks like we are moving down, unfortunately, on the S&P as well. We're barely at break even. You know, the after hours and pre-market for the S&P were basically a break even. We basically just stagnated. We moved up a little bit during the pre-market and then moved back down right before the market opened. And now we're sitting at positive 0.1% gain. So not too much. Nothing too much going on in the market overall. DWAC, unfortunately, did just break down below the $70 level, though. So not the best thing to see. Oil is down. People are looking at the situation in Russia and Ukraine as if it might be, and 3 minutes ago, some not great news. You know, right as the market started moving down, we got this, you know, potentially some algorithmic trading based off this news we got 3 minutes ago. Chernobyl nuclear power plant damaged by Russians a day after repairs. So Ukraine's state nuclear energy company said Monday in a Telegram post that a line to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was damaged again by Russian forces occupying the site. The day prior, Ukraine's atomic energy ministry said power had been restored to Chernobyl after days of repairs to the system. Wow. So looks like Russia's not handling control of the Chernobyl plant too well. It's not looking like the best situation with Russia in control of that. But CEI doing really good stuff. I mean, it looks like that's been a boon to CEI stock, not necessarily the Chernobyl news. But look at that. We're only down about 4.5% on CEI. We've just been all green, not a single red bar on CEI yet today. It's just moving up. We'll see how long we can continue that. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the plays that we were talking about on Friday, a lot of the gold-related plays are down in a decent way, and that's following a decrease in the price of gold. So we'll pull this up. HYMC down over the after hours, the pre-market, as well as down during the day itself, right? Gold started to take a little bit of a turn. We'll see what we can get coming back with these plays. It looks like CEI is only green, and MULN is also getting closer to $2, but NAK as well. This is one that I'm in, NAK. We'll see if we can get some kind of pump coming in on them. They're not necessarily, they're not crashing by any means, at least not yet. But we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. Look at that, MULN making a break above $2. $2.02 per share of MULN, certainly on the run up. And CEI, it's looking like we might get our first red bar of the day. And meanwhile, DWAC sinking below $70. Not an ideal sight, but these gold stocks, right? These gold stocks, a lot of them are doing similar things to what CEI was doing, right? When CEI was pumping up on oil moving up in a big way, people ended up flowing money into CEI, a low market cap oil stock. People were doing similar things with HYMC, a low market cap gold mining stock, and NAK, right? Both of these are, they're not literally both penny stocks. NAK is. It's trading for 41 cents per share, and HYMC is trading for $1.40 per share. Before the pump, though, it was a penny stock, down at 32 cents per share. It got up as high as $2.65 during the trading day on Friday. And we'll see if we can get rallies in these, right? Gold, unfortunately, has taken a bit of a hit over the past couple of days. Gold has been moving down. Potentially, there's been a bit of an easing to some tensions going on in Russia and Ukraine. People are a little bit less worried about the situation than they were prior. And also, gold was topping out around the time that oil was topping out. So people were worried that oil was going to be exploding in price, that inflation was going to be rampant. They're still a little bit worried about the overall inflation situation. But it's looking like gold, at the very least, isn't being used as too much of a hedge against that anymore, at least not over the past couple of days. People were flowing money into gold, and over the past couple of days, as oil's fallen, people have started turning away from gold as well. So we're seeing gold and silver move down in a somewhat significant way. Now, these could potentially rebound over the next couple of days or weeks. I certainly hope they do. I'm a bull on gold because, unfortunately, I think we're going to see some significant inflation. So we'll see what happens with these gold mining stocks. They certainly tend to perform pretty well when gold itself is doing well. But overall, we're looking at a lot of the stocks that we follow. There is not too much green. So typically, over the past month or so, just about, you've seen when a lot of the stocks are down, tends to be that gold ends up moving up as it's a bit of a hedge against the bearishness in the market. At least that's how some people use it. That's how some people view it. You can see during the whole Russia-Ukraine crisis, gold has been on the rise. And notably, a lot of stocks are actually down today. Most of the smaller market cap stocks that we've been watching are down. MULN is the one exception. It's not down in a big way. It's up about 46% on the day. Seeing some resistance at $2, right? We got up above it for 3 minutes and then got pushed back down. So we're going to see what happens with that. We will take a brief peek at cryptos, though. So Bitcoin doing not too great, not too bad, though. Bitcoin's currently sitting around $38,700 per coin. And that's up 0.5% over the past 24 hours. It looks like they took a little dip during the weekend on Sunday. Took a dip down to 37,000. Now it's back up to around the high 38s. So we're seeing some decent stuff with cryptos. Nothing crazy. It looks like they did dip on Sunday, though. And overall, we're seeing more red than green. It looks like a lot of these cryptos, people are selling not super heavily. Everything's down around the range of either between 0 and down 2% is what we're looking at there. Every now and then you see a little green in the crypto market, but not too much, right? Not too much green. Terra Luna is the biggest gainer on the day, in the top 10 at least, up 3.5%. So, cryptos aren't looking too great ever since, at least compared to what we thought they might be doing when we saw the good move that they made on the executive order news. We'll take a peek at the chart, actually, for Bitcoin. It tends to represent overall cryptos pretty darn well. And you can see when we got news of Biden's executive order on crypto that federal agencies should start looking into cryptos and start regulating them and start looking into how to regulate them. We did see Bitcoin pump up on that news for just about a day before moving back down and stagnating. It seems to really like remaining right around the $39,000 level. You can see that for the past couple of months, really, ever since late January, it's been sitting around this level, and it's been unable to escape it. Every now and then you see it bursts down below in a big way and quickly comes back to it, or it bursts up above in a big way, and then over the course of a day or two, it just comes right back to this $39,000 level right here. So Bitcoin really likes sticking at 39. We're going to see if that maintains itself for too much longer. Hopefully it can make a move to the upside. You know, I do invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that. But one other thing that we wanted to pull up, I mean, MULN, we'll look at in just another minute. We'll see what's going on with MULN. But it's something that you guys might not have heard of, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. It's something that trades, and we can take a peek. GBTC. It's a way you can essentially invest in Bitcoin, right? It somewhat tracks the price of Bitcoin pretty well. I believe it's disconnected from the price though, so it can trade kind of off of the price of Bitcoin, but it's supposedly tracking it somewhat accurately. GBTC, Peter Schiff certainly likes to talk a lot about it. And it's a Bitcoin trust that you can buy as a stock, essentially, right? You can see the chart right here. You could choose to buy it if you wished. I would rather just buy Bitcoin, right? I'd rather not pay the management fee that you've got to pay. There's some fee that they have to charge to maintain this trust. But I just thought I'd bring that up just so you guys know there is a stock option, right? If you guys don't want to deal with buying cryptos or whatnot, and you are interested in Bitcoin, there's a way to somewhat buy it, but it's a bit disconnected. I forget the exact term for it, but here you go. I think here we can actually pull it up, and you can see how the trust tracks the price of Bitcoin, or at least the value of the holdings. So you can see that right now it looks like it's trading at a bit of a discount. So it's actually trading below the price of the Bitcoin that they're holding, at least as of 3/11. So the market price per share is $25.50 just about, and the Bitcoin holdings per share are worth about $36 per share. So it's a bit disconnected from the NAV. That's the term. So it's disconnected from the NAV, but it is a way to somewhat invest in Bitcoin. It somewhat closely tracks the price. It's not exact, but it does tend to make the same overall broad moves. Now, something that people have been waiting for, something that people have wanted for a long time, is a Bitcoin ETF. A lot of people want something that's going to exactly trace the price movements of Bitcoin, and we'll see if we get that coming down the pipeline sometime soon. Some people are speculating that could be big news for Bitcoin. If we do end up getting that, it might incentivize a lot of investments to flow into Bitcoin. People are thinking it could take Bitcoin to $100,000, and we'll see if that's the case, right? That's obviously coming from real big Bitcoin bulls, but it could certainly be good for Bitcoin. I don't know if it would take it to $100,000 per coin. I mean, we're currently sitting at 38,000, so I don't know if it's realistic to double it. If there's an ETF, it could certainly do good stuff. It would make it a lot easier for a lot of people to invest in. It would make it a lot more of a trustworthy investment to a lot of people, right? They'd much rather buy it right on their brokerage account as a stock tracking the price of Bitcoin than buy an individual cryptocurrency and hold the coins themselves. I think a lot of people would prefer that. So we'll see if they end up doing that. And Hero talking about Mullen Automotive up 46%. Yes, it is up, and now it's up 47%. It's doing pretty darn well. Mullen Automotive, it's doing pretty darn well. We're seeing real good stuff ever since. For those of you who missed the earlier part of the stream, we'll talk a little bit about what is doing it. The Carbuzz interview with Mullen's CEO, featured the Mullen 5. It's an interesting name, the Mullen 5, FIVE, the EV crossover. So apparently it generated enough hype to move this thing in a pretty big way. I mean, it's a very small market cap stock. We'll pull that up. We'll pull up Mullen's page, they're a very small market cap, even after this big pump up in price. So it does not take much to move this thing. And they are a growth stock that has been pushed down pretty dramatically over the past year from fairly high values. Currently, even after the big pump up that they've seen over the past couple of days, even after this 48% gain to $2, they're still a $70 million market cap stock. So, I mean, there is a bit of hype behind them, and it does not take much hype to pump up a $70 million market cap stock. So, you're seeing some big moves in them. For those of you who were curious, what initially moved them up in days past, I think it's this one right here. They ended up, during the beginning of this rally that they started seeing, we'll take a look at the long-term chart, what initially moved them up to their current highs of the pump around 214. We're really not that far off now. What initially moved them up was some hype on a new solid-state polymer battery pack that they've been developing, supposedly that's going to be able to yield, once it's done, 600 plus miles of range. So, they said that they're not actually going to start in-vehicle prototype testing until 2025, though. So it's a ways off, but it is very exciting. The current longest range EV, I think, is the Lucid Air, potentially the Lucid Air Dream. I forget the exact name of the model, but has 520 miles of range. So Muln would be beating that out. Now, obviously, if it takes them another 3 years to get that thing prototype testing in a car, who knows what kind of long-range EVs we could have from other companies, maybe Tesla, maybe Lucid makes another one by then. So we'll see, what gets developed, what gets announced. But Muln certainly is at least trying to enter the race for longest range EV, and we'll see if they're successful. We got good developments on it about 2 weeks ago when they started pumping up, and we'll see if that continues. We'll also pull up the short interest for anyone who's curious, and we'll pull it up for a couple of the stocks that we've been watching. We'll pull up Muln. We'll also look at CEI. I'm curious what's going on with the short interest there. We are moving up decently on CEI. It was a very short-term dip that we ended up seeing, quite fortunately. So let's see what we've got on Muln. It looks like there are some additional shorts coming in today, but some shorts have been getting out. So we're at about 3.89 million shares short, according to Ortex, 2.51% of the free float, up 18% short interest-wise today. So not the biggest part of the free float, but 3.89 million shares. All in all, that means maybe around $4 million or $8 million. Yeah, $4 million. No, $8 million worth of short positions at $2 per share. So not the highest amount, but all things considered, for this small of a market cap, it's gotten some people excited. And CEI for short interest is currently at 13.35%, 45 million shares. So much larger short interest dollar-wise than Muln. It looks like CEI is sitting around $20 million short, just about. Not, once again, not the most massive short position CEI has over the past couple of days, taken a bit of a dip. It was at one point trading close to $2. So it's taken a bit of a dip short position-wise over the past couple of days, but we are on the rise. In fact, we just seem to be making green bar after green bar. We're only down 2.5% now on the day from close. So we could be getting into the green, and it's not even based on oil, right? Oil has actually been continuing to move down. CEI has just been rejecting the move down. So maybe it's going to continue doing that. Hopefully it will, right? I'd be very happy if CEI, I'd be happy for it to continue moving up despite oil. And then who knows what we could see if oil starts moving up in a big way, right? If we get another oil pump, if CEI is already on the run up, that could be very good for CEI stock. But look at that. We've basically erased the losses over the weekend, right? We're down less than 2% now. So CEI, it's a trader's favorite, it looks like, just getting bought up and up and up. So let's check it out on Google Trends and see what we've got here. Well, interesting stuff. Another big green flash on CEI. But look at this. A lot of people looking into Muln as it's pumped up. So Muln has just completely taken over CEI stock, right? CEI is in blue, Muln is in red. It has a bunch more people searching for it, especially during this hour. A ton of people looking at Muln stock. But CEI, not doing too bad. It's actually starting to uptrend a little bit now that it's turning somewhat green. I guess that's impressing some people. Some people are looking into it. So we're seeing not bad stuff, as long as we're seeing more people looking into it, potentially getting into it. That's going to be good for the price. And now we're only down less than 1% on CEI, so it has really turned around. MULN, unfortunately, taking a little bit of a dip past $2. It looks like 2 is, at least at the moment, we'll draw a little line for it, acting as a resistance for us. So that's why it does, at least seemingly right now, imagine these two situations. Earlier I was talking about taking some profits every now and then, here and there, right? Imagine, it could be a tough situation for some people to be looking at this thing moving down. They're wondering, oh, is it going to keep moving down? Is it going to go down to 180? Is it going to go down to 170? Or is it going to go back up? It's tough for people to decide to just hold strong all the time. Obviously, some people can, but then imagine the situation where it does actually move down, right? Would you rather have sold a little bit here for a gain, right? You're probably holding this thing for a gain at this point, unless you bought way back when, during the after hours and pre-market of the other day, when we were barely above 2 for a little bit of time in the pre-market. We were above 2. It does, in my opinion, tend to pay off. Not financial advice by any means. It does tend to pay off to be selling a little bit here and there while you're up. That's just how I like to do it. But if you're up and you're up big, there's no shame in taking some profits, right? If you're still bullish on the stock, obviously you want to hold a decent amount of it still, but just locking in a little bit here and there. And that actually offers an interesting solution to a problem, right? And Hassan Adams says, I just sold MULN. So probably for a big gain, congratulations, man. But it does offer an interesting solution to a problem, right? Say you bought MULN at, let's say you bought it at $1 exactly, just to make the numbers easy. Let's say you bought it at $1. And you bought, just to make the numbers easy, 100 shares. So you bought $100 worth of MULN. Then it goes up to $2, and you decide, let me sell half of it. So you sell $50 worth of MULN. Well, at what point would that trade actually be a loss? You can hold it a whole lot lower before it's actually a loss than you could without having sold, right? So you bought it $1, and then if it moves back down to $1 or below, then you're at a loss, right? Or a break even. But if you sell half at 2, then you can actually hold this thing down to 50 cents before you're actually at a break even, because you've sold half at 2, you've taken an extra $50 profit, boom, right there. Then it can move down to 50 cents before you're actually at a break even. So it allows you to diamond hand the rest of the shares for a whole lot longer before you're in the red. Obviously, some people just like diamond handing, all the way through. And that's certainly a way to do it. And it's definitely a way to maximize profits and maximize losses, right? So, if you sell at the very top, yeah, you're going to outperform the person who's been selling a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. But it's very tough to do, and sometimes you miss it. And at least if you're selling along the way, it's not the perfect strategy, I'll admit, right? There are downsides to it. You're not going to be able to sell all of it at the top if you're selling a little bit here and there. But it at least gets you some sold near the top, which... and it does, if you're selling it for a gain, at least you're selling it for a gain, right? So there are upsides to it. I certainly like doing it. A lot of people, they just want to get the max. They want to maximize everything. And that's a way to do it, but you've got to be very careful. You've got to be very careful because these stocks can move down or up, right? I mean, if you're shorting, they can move up and create a red position. They can do that very quickly. And you saw it happen with MULN already, especially with MULN, guys. A very small market cap. So easy to move both to the upside and the downside. You've got to watch out for it. Right now, we're enjoying the upside that MULN has to offer, but just about a week and a half ago, it was experiencing a similar move to the downside. So right now, we're on the up and up. But don't forget the flip side, guys. Always be cautious. Not financial advice. Just something that I'm thinking. Right? Just my personal thoughts. It looks like we are, though, at the moment with MULN making our way back up to 2. So potentially we're going to test this again. If we can break through 2, that would certainly be good. And something about MULN is that it has been hurt dramatically over the past couple of months. It's very similar to a lot of the smaller cap stocks that we like to talk about. A lot of these stocks have been hurt in a big, big way. MULN, just since January, it was at $5.35 where it opened the year in January. It's even now after the pump down 63%. And at these current levels, if we were to return just to where we are in January. From $2 to where we were in January when we opened the year, that's 165% gain. So by no means is this pump, as it probably hasn't topped out in my opinion, right? It could have. $2, if it was going to top out, it might be at 2 since we haven't broken through it yet. But if we can break through it, there's certainly more room for upside, right? Even to just get back to where we were in January, especially now that we've gotten some more positive developments. But, it's not a long-term EV hold for me. Maybe if I looked a little bit more into the long-term fundamentals, I really like the growth prospects of Central Automotive. That's one that I'm holding for more long-term play, right? One that I expect to do well over the next couple of years, especially if they hit their revenue numbers. But we'll see what happens with these EV plays. There's a lot of EV companies out there. Unfortunately, a lot of them have actually been getting hit hard over the past couple of months. We'll pull up Tesla. Tesla, typically a leader in the EV space. They're down pretty significantly off their highs, which we saw just a couple months ago. Back in November, Tesla was making its highs, and to where we are now, it's down 37%. So Tesla's not quite in the green. I bet Elon is pretty glad that he sold, 10% of his Tesla over $1,000, or at least over $900. Probably most of it over $1,000. So I bet Elon's pretty glad about that. But the whole EV space has been moving down actually. Since Tesla started peaking, right? Tesla peaked, and then 10 days later, MULN was on the way down. Sen, also just about 4 days after actually, is when Sen peaked, or at least the holding company, NAK, the company that eventually merged with Sen. That's when that peaked. So we're looking at a lot of EV companies moving down, following Tesla. If we could see Tesla turn around, that could create a more bullish environment for the whole industry, but it's going to be tough, right? It's going to be tough with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. And we're looking at some other stocks as well. It's not just EV plays out here. CEI looks like it took a little bit of a dip over the past couple of minutes. Some of a big wave of red bars took us down off of 90 cents. Now we're at 85. So we're going to see what happens with CEI. It looks like oil took another hit, down to 102 per barrel, 102.76. I mean, I'm sure we're all happy to see it at the gas pumps. And for the overall economy, we certainly want oil to be moving down in price. We'd much rather that because overall, when oil gets very expensive, it's going to create a tough environment for a lot of businesses to operate in that rely on oil, either for energy to produce their products or to transport their products, and it's not a good thing overall. So, our portfolios, despite what might be going on with our CEI plays, are probably going to benefit if oil does continue to get cheaper, but there's always the chance, you never know, if it's going to get a little bit more expensive or a lot more expensive, depending on what goes on. It certainly could. It certainly could get quite a bit more expensive. Hopefully it doesn't, but all things considered, CEI is a play that I'm interested in right now because we have seen it pump up to $2 this time. Now, it's actually kind of similar to what we saw with MULN, right? We saw an initial pump up. Maybe we'll see another run on CEI. That would be the hope. That would be the hope that we would see another run up on CEI. Hopefully just on oil news. Nothing too devastating for Ukraine and Russia. I would prefer it not run on bad news for Ukraine and Russia. I'd much rather it just be oil-related news. But I will say, MULN at a big pump up, moved down, stayed the same for a couple days, right? We waited for that next catalyst, and then it pumped up again. So these catalyst-driven plays, a lot of the times, sometimes stocks are just trading off the technicals. Sometimes it's just, pump and dump with a penny stock. But when you're getting catalysts coming for these stocks, you never know when the next one might be. Oftentimes, a catalyst can come just a couple of days after the first catalyst. And a lot of the time, something that may not have been a catalyst in the first place can become a catalyst because a stock is already in the limelight, right? With MULN, once again, we'll pull up the catalyst that we had going for it today, okay? It was featured on CarBuzz. Now, I'm sure there are a bunch of cars that are featured on CarBuzz, and that might not have pumped MULN today if they hadn't already pumped up big just a couple of days prior, because they pumped up due to their EV battery news. That was pretty big news. A lot of short squeeze hype. A lot of people were interested in them for that. So, when you do see a big play, when you see it pump up big, similar to what CEI is doing, catalysts can pop up that might not have been massive drivers for stock price increases if there hadn't already been a big drive up in a big increase in stock price, right? This basically puts a stock on people's radars, and you can see it on their radars right here, right? It's on the most active list on StockTwits. A lot of people are looking at these stocks. And when people start hearing about a big catalyst, they start posting about it on StockTwits. They start posting about it in Discords that are dedicated to these stocks. They start talking about it in articles, and people already are familiar with searching these stocks. They end up searching them on Google more. You end up seeing them pop up on Reddit. We'll pull up Ape Wisdom to see if anything's trending on Reddit. My guess is, look at that. Look at that. MULN listed on Reddit now, number 5 top trending stock. So you see these stocks pop up whenever there's news about them, only after typically they've already seen a big pump in price. So the first pump on these stocks can really unlock a slew of potential future pumps. Now, it's not always a guarantee. A lot of stocks just have one big pump. They never go up again. They move down until maybe years later they see another pump. But sometimes in the following days and weeks, you can see a secondary pump on these things. So that's always a situation to look for, always a potential. We're seeing it right now with MULN. A lot of people are thinking we might see another pump on CEI. It's still trending fairly highly on StockTwits. It's at least in the top 10 most active. It's number 7 at the moment. We'll see what we can get on it. Marcus says Sndl growers still going backwards. I know we haven't looked too much at Sndl today. We're waiting for the earnings call, but yeah, Sndl down 3%. Not happy to see Sndl moving down. Not super worried about Sndl moving down either, though. I think that in April is when we're going to start seeing a lot of those catalysts regarding legalization. Potentially, we're going to start seeing stuff even this month. Right before the earnings call, we might see something happen with Alcana. Before the 30th is when they expect to have the Alcana acquisition close. And hopefully, the earnings call will have some good news for us. We'll have to see, though. But then in April, we're expecting a bunch of legalization-related catalysts. I think that could get these cannabis stocks moving. What would be ideal to happen before that, though, is ideally this whole Russia situation will wrap itself up, the news cycle will be done with it, and we can then get some cannabis-related news in the media. That would be really ideal for Sndl stock. That's what I would like to see. It's not a guarantee, and hopefully, not just for Sndl stock, hopefully for humanitarian reasons, we can get this whole conflict wrapped up sooner rather than later. But that's what we got for the day. It's 10:02. We went a little bit late on this one. We stayed a couple minutes extra, but it's an exciting day, right? MULN pumping up to around $2. CEI seeing some green during the day, despite being down big in the pre-market. So thank you guys for joining. Feel free to hit the like button if you don't mind. That does help out the algorithm. It lets me know that there are people on the other side, not just bots watching these videos. So it's much appreciated. Keep in mind, guys, though, if it's anyone's first time, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We do these streams every morning at 9. Just talk about what's going on in the market, some overall news, as well as talk about some individual stocks that are on the move that day, whatever we're interested in. And we have fun, hopefully. Hopefully people enjoy this as well. So if you're watching, either if it's on YouTube or Rumble or whatnot, feel free to subscribe or follow a Rumble. And look at this, actually. Look at this. I did not look at the Rumble page yet, but hold on. Let me pull this up. The very first, I think this is the very first Rumble rant. Teflon Don, thank you very much. You demand, Robbie says. Thank you very much. On Rumble, the very first Rumble rant that we've gotten. We've got it live on stream. So cool stuff. Rumble is definitely not as big of a platform as YouTube yet, but it is growing. So if anyone wants to take a look at Rumble or the Locals channel, feel free. Check out the Locals channel, top link in description. You guys can see, whatever I post, typically day to day. I'll post something about some stocks. We talk about stocks that we're watching. We talk about overall news, when CPI data comes out, some statistics, some more news that came out, some interesting pictures of gas prices and CEI on the move, some Warren Buffett analysis, right? So we talk about all kinds of stuff in the Locals channel. It's free to join if anyone wants to join it. For anyone who's interested, feel free to join that. And it's you can choose to support it if you wish. We're also going to be working on some other stuff on the channel. Sometime soon I'm going to work on that, but this outro has been long enough, right? People are getting bored. So thanks, guys. Hopefully y'all had a great weekend, and hopefully we're looking at a great week. We'll see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock sharp. Bye, though.